Let's first recap what we have learned and built so far. We learned about AWS CodeDeploy, a few theories around AWS CodeDeploy. We then built my Donkey application and ran it on the development machine. We then built the same application but with the help of Azure DevOps pipeline. We explored the file paths in the build machine and also explored the build zip file or the deployment package and made sure that the AppSpec file is in the correct location and the files are in the right order. We finally uploaded this deployment package to an S3 bucket with the help of Azure DevOps pipeline. So this is the first phase of this pipeline building effort. We then created an AWS CodeDeploy application and then used the single S3 bucket or the zip file that is in the S3 bucket and then deploy that deployment artifact to the environment called preprod. So the final thing we need to do is to do the linking so that from the time the pipeline get executed, it uploaded to S3 bucket and the S3 bucket will have that zip file and AWS CodeDeploy will use that zip file or the recently built artifact to deploy into the environment. So let's see how we can do that. I'm in my AWS console. Let's go to EC2 section and then remove this build machine as a target environment. We just use it as a target environment just to demo how you can target multiple machines. So let's remove the tag where the environment is set as pre-production. So let's remove it. And also we will go into the build machine and then reset the IAM permission. So if you go into the IAM roles, we have attached Amazon S3 read-only access to download that package. We don't need it anymore. So we'll remove that also. We keep this EC2 instance only for build purpose. And we will modify, of course, shortly to attach more permissions to invoke AWS CodeDeploy. I'm in Azure DevOps server. If you go into my Donkey application that we have been playing around, we have already created a pipeline. It's called my Donkey at sample. So let's edit it. We executed all these steps successfully. We managed to create an archive and then upload into S3 bucket. So the next step is to invoke CodeDeploy to deploy this application into the environment of choice. So first step is to enable this. We disabled this option previously. So control option, you need to make sure that it's enabled. And we need to configure this. So how I added this CodeDeploy with AWS CodeDeploy is I went to this plus sign and then I type CodeDeploy. So here you have that option, AWS CodeDeploy application deployment. You can use this task. Alternatively, you can do it through pure PowerShell. So we already studied these plugins and the PowerShell in previous labs. So I added this so it's already added. I'm going to make some modifications. Like before, we know that there are multiple ways to provide credentials. In this lab series, we are just going to provide the credentials through instance profile. So therefore, I'm not going to set up the permissions here. If you need to know more about how to set the permissions, we have discussed this in previous labs. So the region is, of course, this CodeDeploy is going to be in App Southeast 2, which is the Sydney region. It may be different for you. And the application name has to come from the application name that I have defined in the CodeDeploy. So let's go then and see where I have defined it. I'm in my AWS console. So if you go into CodeDeploy, you can find that we already created an application called My Donkey App Test. So that's the name of the application. So you need to copy this name and then provide it in your configuration. So the name of the application is My Donkey App Test. So this is what we created. Make sure there's no any spaces in front or at the end. Deployment group name, we need to select it. So the deployment group name we gave was pre-production. So that's the name. So copy it. So fill it here, pre-production. Deployment revision source is from Amazon S3. S3 bucket name has to be name of the bucket. So it depends on what you set up here. So in S3, we set it up as my build artifacts. That's the name of the bucket where we copied the artifacts. And that's the bucket that you created. So this bucket already exists. So let's select that bucket name. So that's the name of the bucket. And revision model key is my donkey app deliveries. My donkey app, this is the name. So if you look at this S3, we copied this name, my donkey app underscore build app. This is the version. And there's a folder name called my donkey app deliveries, and that's why I have defined it here, my donkey app deliveries, my donkey app, the full name. So that will identify the zip file that got created as part of this pipeline execution. If you go into your S3 bucket, you can find that these names I have come from this my build app artifacts, and inside that I have my donkey app deliveries folder, and this is where the pipeline is going to upload as part of S3 upload task. But we need to take this name dynamically because this name is going to change for each build. That's why I'm going to use parameters like this to specify the name of the file. So all looks good. Click save. Of course, we want to make sure that this instance, the build machine, has enough permission to upload into S3 and also to deploy into AWS CodeDeploy. I can execute this and then get the error and then attach the permission to the build machine, but we already done it multiple times. So let's attach the right permissions to the build machine so that the machine has enough permission to execute this task. I'm in my AWS console, go to EC2. We have done this multiple times. So if you go into your running instances, we have our build machine. So this build machine is make sure that the IAM role has the right permissions. I'm doing this one again. Maybe in your lab environment you have already attached it, but for this explanation, I'm going to show you how to do that. Attach the policies. So this build machine is going to upload into S3. So I just give Amazon S3 full access. You can of course give fine-grained control, but in this case I choose the easy path. But in real production environment, you are supposed to give only fine-grained access. So I give Amazon S3 full access, but in production environments you will define this is the only you will be very specific which folder that you are going to allow write access. So attach another policy. We are going to do a code deployment. Deploy. So if you search code deploy, you can give again fine-grained control, but in this case, I'm going to do code deploy full access. In your case, in the production environment, you will be defining just enough permission to deploy into a specific code deploy application. So far, this is good. So my build machine has enough permissions. So let's execute the pipeline. Go to your build, go to your Azure pipelines. Make sure that these are all good. Let's queue a new build. So the default pool is AWS build pool. Queue a new build. The build has started. So if you go to the builds, you can find that build is running. It's checking out the content. It's restoring all the NuGet packages. It's going to run some tests. Print some parameters. We already studied this. Archive S3 upload was successful, and now executing code deploy with AWS CodeDeploy to my test environment. So if I go into this, ideally a new code deployment should be running. If I go into deployments, so code deploy with code deploy to my donkey app test environment. Let's see where there are any errors. So it was successful. So if I go here, we can find that it has already deployed the solution. One was successful. Application, we can type .NET. So I'm in my development machine.net. The file is in temp folder, and my donkey app is the name of the my donkey app is the folder, and then you have another file called my donkey app DLL. You can find hello world 123 get printed into the console. So let's now run a full test where we are going to make changes to the source control and then commit it and then build it. So prior to doing that, go to your pipelines, make sure you edit the pipeline, and then you click triggers and enable continuous integration, so that from the time a developer commits something, it gets automatically built. So let's do that run. Open Visual Studio Code. Open the project. In this case, if this is not already open, go to folders, my donkey app. This is the folder that you need to open. So I already opened that folder, and you can find the message here. So instead of hello world, let's type something like donkey ate an apple. So that's the message. I made the changes, so I'm simulating a developer making some changes. Change the message to v2. I save the changes. Yep. And then I'm going to push it. So this will automatically start a build and then deploy into this folder. As of now, this is the time that it did the first deployment. So let's wait for a while until it does the deployment. The build is happening. You can find that it's restore the packages, it's building it, running the test. At some point in time, it's copy the files, archive the files, upload to S3. Now it's executing code deploy. So let's wait until this is completed. So the code deploy should be running behind the scene. If I go into code deploy, my application deployments. So it's already actually deployed it. The deployment was successful. If I go into my TFS, you can find that all the steps have been successfully executed. So if I run this thing again, you can find that donkey ate an apple came as the message. So it's a seamless integration. Developer commits into the source control, and it automatically gets built, deployed into the environment of choice, and you have the result. Hope you enjoyed this session.